Travelers on the Omnibus occasionally touches on mature subject matter with mature language. As such, the audience discretion is advised. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Travelers on the Omnibus, a field trip through nerd and pop culture. My name is, it's still James McCarthy. Whew, I was concerned there.
Glad you could remember that.
Yeah, you gave me my pills this week.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hello, everybody. I am Ethan today.
I am Brady.
I am Jody.
I like how most of us are now one named like Prince and Madonna. Who do you relate to more, Prince or Madonna?
Neither one, because Prince at one time requested a Campbell at 3 o'clock in the morning in Detroit.
If that's
like
the case,
a Campbell soup?
No, a camel.
A camel. Oh, a camel.
He also stopped at a nightclub and requested that everything be stopped and he gets to watch Finding Nemo on the projector.
Madonna recently was bathing in a tub of milk, saying that she was very relatable.
That's some vampire shit right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's some straight up vampire shit.
So I relate to neither one of those.
Yeah.
I will relate to Prince for the Nemo. I do enjoy some Nemo.
Little Nemo?
Finding Nemo.
So
Finding Nemo.
So
Little Nemo and Slumberland. That's
neither Prince. All right, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
Prince wins.
Yeah, Prince wins 2-0 out of 4 votes.
Yeah. That's a very
Ethan,
Prince,
what have you been up to?
It's a very Prince thing to do.
Take a baptism in the lakes of Minnetonka.
That actually does sound pretty cool because Minnesota, I have to imagine a Minnesota lake is cold most of the year.
Probably.
Yes,
That might be
very
cool.
good.
So once again, with feeling, Ethan Skinner, what have you been up to?
Okay. So
There's not a toilet in here, sir. Are you okay?
That was the feeling right there.
I recently got the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga for the Switch. It's not bad, but at the same time, it's somewhat disappointing because they have updated the game a lot since the original trilogy came out. But at the same time, I was kind of looking forward to that nostalgic feeling of the childhood nostalgia of playing the original game and going through all the stories. But with the new ones, which I still like the fact that they updated everything, but it just didn't have the same childhood feeling to it. So somewhat disappointed by that. Getting some stuff for some magic and all that. So nothing too exciting.
Yeah. Nostalgia can be a hell of a thing.
Have you adventured more into Elden Ring?
Unfortunately, no. Mainly just because not finding the time to do things here recently with work and other ventures going out.
Understandable.
But yeah, just nothing all that exciting with me.
Jody, what you been up to?
So I've still been playing a little bit Slay the Spire, but I'm gonna go into a little Jody time story here.
Welcome to Story Time with Jody L. Kite.
I have a love-hate relationship with a certain genre of music. I am an 80s kid, so I grew up during the boom of the metal years, all the way up until the alternative and grunge era, and I was definitely for a change in the zeitgeist of the way music was going at the time. I was definitely not someone who was like holding on to dear life for hair metal, thrash, and death metal at the time. So when that happened, I moved on to what was happening at the time. I listened to a lot of weird shit too, but recently I listened to a new album that just came out recently. Recently.
How recently?
And yes, extremely recently. In fact, it was Tuesday that I listened to this album while I was delivering food while I was in my car, and it's the new Ghost album, Imperium. Yeah, I listened to.
Oh yeah.
I think I heard the last Ghost. I only listened to like 1 or 2 Ghost songs prior, and it was like one of the earlier songs. I think it was like what is it? The one with the clock.
Monstrous Clock.
Monstrous Clock.
Infestism.
Yeah, Monstrous Clock. That was one. I was like, oh, these guys are pretty cool. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to listen to this whole album. And so There are two songs that I really liked a lot. Kassarian and Kassarian was really good, and Watcher in the Sky.
Yeah.
I liked both of those, and I liked their nods to what inspired them to be a band. You know, there's a lot of different sort of influences. You get a lot of, mid 80s Ozzy in there. You get some, not in a bad way, but you do get a little bit of the aesthetics musically of some of the glam stuff that happened during that time period, but the good stuff though.
Well, what's really cool is like their previous album, Prequel, was more like a 60s, 70s vibe. And then Impera has moved towards more of an 80s vibe. So they've done a really interesting thing with that. But yeah, I'm with you. I love the new Ghost album. I think it's stronger in the beginning, the first half than the second half, but it's still good all the way around. Kassarian is really good. It's basically, if you know Ghost, they're kind of a gimmick band. They have this whole lore to them, and this is kind of if they did an Iron Maiden song, basically. But that album is really good. I'm glad. Yeah,
definitely got Iron Maiden vibes and. A little bit of Judas Priest, British Steel.
And they're one of my favorite. I haven't been to a whole lot of wide variety of concerts, but they're one of my favorites. Like, it's an experience.
I could see that because I've seen a couple of their videos and they have the whole anti-Catholic garb on and whatever it is that they because they have what's his name, the lead singer,
Tobias Forge.
Well, the actual character. Okay, so there's.
Every album he changes, right?
Yeah, most of them are Papa Emeritus. 1, 2, 3, and then they killed off the bloodline. I'm telling you, there's a whole lore.
There's a storyline.
And they got Cardinal Copia, and then he was actually made Papa Emeritus for this newest album.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, they don't take themselves too seriously, but they do kind of do like a Satanist thing, but it's very tongue in cheek. All of the other people besides the main guy wears a mask, like a rubber mask the whole time with weird face paint on, and then all of the other people in the band don't have names. They're just called nameless ghouls, and they're all wearing masks and they all change, everything changes, their look changes as the as the new album comes out. There's a whole lore where during one of their live performances, that's when they'll bring out a new there was literally Cardinal Copia was performing, and then some satanic nuns came out and made him the new Papa Emeritus.
Because there's really when with that kind of metal, there's 3 ways you can kind of go with it, right? You're either it's an homage, which is what it sounded like Ghost was doing. It can be tongue in cheek, a mockery, or it could be just straight up plagiarism in a way. But Ghost presented it as this is a little bit of that old sound with a lot of new things put into it, and I really enjoyed it. And not that this is going to bring me back to metal as a whole, but I will definitely want to go back and listen to all of the Ghost albums.
Have some really good albums.
Because I got tired out on if you want to talk about thematics, King Diamond had it down. He had a couple of albums that were actually sequels. The storyline went from one album to the next. His album. If I could ever suggest anything, if you can handle the falsetto that he does, is Them and Conspiracy. No, Abigail. Them. I think Them and Abigail. Or am I wrong, Jay? It's either Abigail or Conspiracy.
I want to say it's Conspiracy.
Yeah, but I think Abigail came after that. But those 2 albums, there is a conversation. The whole gimmick of the Them album is that it is the trope of there's a grandmother and she made a deal with either some demons or the devil, and these 2 imps are having a conversation about, oh, she's not fooling anyone. At the very beginning, before the first song even comes out, and he goes, grandma, that's where it hits off or whatever, and it's got a story to it. It's really cool, and he's influenced by horror movies and all that. But I digress. I've not listened to any of that stuff in 20 plus years. So to be reinvigorated with that kind of style of something really got me. So I'm definitely down for listening to some more Ghost stuff. So that's what I've been doing. What about you, Jay?
No, Brady, you next.
Okay, I've been doing a couple of things. Last Thursday, game night, Jody and Jay weren't there, but I ran a game of Western Legends, and Ethan actually was joined in on this game. I played Western Legends a couple of times. It's a sandbox game where you are going around this frontier area with towns, and you can kind of just do whatever you want. If you want to, gamble and get points that way, you can do that. If you want to be a bad guy and rob other players or rustle cattle, you can do that.
It's basically you insert yourself into any generic Clint Eastwood movie.
Yeah.
And if you have to ask which one, yes, all of them.
Yeah, all of them. Like
The Westerns. Dirty Harry does not show up. In
yeah,
spaghetti
you literally
westerns.
like you choose your character, and it's a famous person from the West. Like I was Wyatt Earp. Who were you? Do you remember who you were, Ethan?
Doc Holliday, maybe.
Not
Doc Holliday's in there, but nobody was him.
Bass someone.
Bass Reeves. He was Bass Reeves.
Oh, okay.
So like you get these people who kind of set you down. Like if you want to be a marshal and go around and arrest the wanted players, like you have a wanted track and a marshal track.
Oh, nice.
Or there's like bandits that show up. They're kind of NPCs that you can go and fight. Like that's what my character got extra actions from actually being a marshal and going around and fighting those, and you get points that way.
Or you could literally just get points from playing poker.
Yeah, like
man.
Yeah, you can do that. Or there's a couple of expansions for it, and I was finally able to play with the big expansion called Ante Up, which adds like a train. It makes gambling matter a little bit more because in the base game, really gambling, there wasn't much point to it. Like you could get money and exchange that for points, but it wasn't as helpful as it wasn't as
Intuitive.
lucrative.
Yeah, right.
As being a wanted player or being a martial player or something
Gotcha.
like that.
It's more like side hustle.
Yeah. But in this one, like there's a gambler track, and you can actually like get points that way. And they also add in Pharaoh, which if you don't know what that is, watch Tombstone. That's what they run in that. But they also add like there's a train that goes around the board that you can rob if it's in a certain area. They add events. Like it adds a ton of stuff and just makes the game that much better. There's a little bit more stuff that you have to learn, but it's not too terribly much. Like
even with all the stuff that you have to learn, it's very, very easy to like,
it seems
pick up.
very overwhelming when I could see like
At first.
when I was teaching Ethan and them, like they were like, oh my god, but once you get like used to the flow of the game of, okay, at the start of my turn I do these things, then I can do you basically just you take 3 actions during your turn, and once you get down what all of those things you can do and get kind of a plan, you can really do
Like
it.
a medium entry level.
Yeah, I can see that. But yeah, it's a really fun game. I might be running it tomorrow as well because Greg said something about wanting to play it, but maybe not. It doesn't matter. But it plays up to 6 people, so that a lot of people can play it.
I'd be interested in playing if I'm up here. So
Another victory under my board game belt.
Yeah, Ethan won. Moving on. I also started watching a new show on Amazon Prime called Outer Range.
That's the one with Josh Brolin.
Josh Brolin, plays.
Have they dropped everything, or
just
are they
2
drip
episodes.
Okay, they're drip feeding. Okay.
The first 2 episodes came out. Josh Brolin owns a ranch, and it's kind of not doing too well. There's a guy trying to take some of his land, who's the rancher next door, who's like really wealthy, and also there's this kind of hippie backpacker chick who comes up and was like, hey, can I stay on your land for just a couple of days? And then one day he finds, I believe the technical term is a big old goddamn hole that seems like a void to nowhere. And Josh Brolin sticks his hand in and weird shit starts happening. It's kind of a mix of like there's things going on with the family, but then they're also like there's this big hole, and this girl who showed up is really weird, played by Imogen Poots. Don't know why I said that, except other than I just like whenever she's in something, I like bringing that up because I like saying her name. But it seems like a very interesting show. I'm not gonna. They've revealed a little bit of things, but they've asked more questions than they've really answered so far because it's only 2 episodes. But I don't want to really spoil anything. But it's an interesting show. So far it's well acted. I'm interested in it. If they don't, blow any of the reveals, I think it's going to be a good.
sounds pretty cool.
Western sci-fi is a thing that I like. Those are 2 things that I like melded together.
Present day or Like, is it a little bit off? Or
It's present day
It is
as far as I
present
can
day,
tell.
okay.
Yeah.
That's a subgenre that's hard for them to typically
Yeah.
for it to work.
I saw the promo for that, and it uses Juice Newton's "Call Me the Angel of the Morning,"
Oh,
and it's weird and quirky. But
I like weird and quirky.
Set with the scenes they shot. Like, I'm interested.
Like it takes place in Wyoming, which is like 20 years behind everybody because
Right.
there's 5 people in Wyoming.
Shout out to our 5. We have 5 fans exactly in Wyoming, so all of
Shout out
Wyoming
to
is
Wyoming.
watching.
Yeah,
is
all of-
watching Travelers of the Omni.
Oh, okay.
I actually don't know that for a fact. I know
Watching.
that 100% of our viewership is from the States,
Okay.
so we haven't had any international flavor
Okay.
yet.
But hey, you 5 people in Wyoming, we love you.
I can't confirm it's 5 people in Wyoming.
You people in Wyoming, we love you.
Now that just sounds
You
like,
people.
sounds a little bad, man.
Yeah, that's weird.
There
But
you
yeah,
go.
that's what I've been doing.
That's pretty cool. One of the reasons why I passed off is I've done nothing this week.
Ah.
I've been doing a lot of overtime at work, and so when I get home, I'm just like, well, just gonna hit that off switch and
Yeah.
just go.
Been
but
there.
I don't blame you.
I
Been
will
there.
say, however, last night with my last night of working, hopefully for this weekend, I did get a chance to sit down with some friends at work and play Horrified American Monsters. We went up against Bigfoot and the Jersey Devil, and we won. I was very happy about that. That slide puzzle, I like if you don't like slide puzzles, you will not like facing off against Bigfoot.
I love slide puzzles.
If you love slide puzzles,
Bigfoot,
then that's
I
all
despise.
that's all you, baby. Just slide puzzle.
yeah, we got
away.
to play that not too long ago.
Yeah. What do you think about that one compared to the?
Thematically, I like it more than Universal Monsters. Aesthetically, I prefer the Universal Monsters. I like the basic red, blue, like green, yellow, and brown. Or rather, like beige. Like
that the colors in the game of the tokens and everything is not great.
it's very muted. And
But I like the board and stuff like that.
the board again. Thematically, the board. I like the idea that, like, the Banshee, the Badlands, the Ozark Howler, like things that you don't normally think of
Cryptids.
as monsters.
Yeah,
but-
it's cryptids is what you're
specifically the
fighting.
American cryptids, which I think is fantastic. Although the chupacabra is, I believe, Brazilian because, which is the only one that kind of seems a little bit off. But other than that, any game that has the Mothman in it,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
all for it. So,
Down.
yeah.
Yep.
So I was able to play a game of that, and I was very happy about that.
Yeah, I think the monsters do like interesting things compared to like the original one, and I like the kind of X-Files, Twin Peaks aesthetic that's going on with those.
I've only played it once, so I don't know. The Jersey Devil is either annoying or brilliant, and I cannot make up my mind. on it
I've
yet.
only played it once, and we didn't play with the Jersey Devil.
Yeah. So there's an entire stack of Jersey Devil civilian cards, and it's kind of like a game of Guess Who, where
Yeah.
it's like you have 3 clues about who the 13th, because the 13th child of the witch is the Jersey Devil. You have 3 clues out of a stack of 7, and every time you rescue a citizen, you get to reveal one of those clues. And it's going to reference something that is on one of those character sheets. Like, you'll flip over glasses, and so we know the 13th child wears glasses. And then you flip over another one that has flowers, and then you're looking for someone who has glasses, who has flowers in their portrait. And then the third one, hopefully when you flip the third one over, you have only one person left that has all 3 of those elements, and then that's the 13th child, and then you have to summon them and get the Jersey Devil into the same spot, and then you have to spend a number of the items. I think it was equal up to 14
I can't
in
remember
amount
off the top of
to defeat the Jersey Devil. Where it gets annoying, in my opinion, is every so often when you have a monster strike, like if a monster's in the same square with you and it moved and activated, it usually rolls a die or up to 3. If it hits you, I wouldn't mind it being hit you. If you roll that exclamation point, then for the Jersey Devil specifically, you take one of those clues you found and you toss it out and you put one that hasn't been in play in its place face down.
Oh.
So now I've got to, not only have we thought it's this person, now it's no longer this person, or it might actually still be this person because it still might meet the 3 criteria, but now we've got to save more people and do all this. And with that, I will say the time limit felt a little longer than it does for Universal Monsters, but with that that ticking clock on you that entire time, oh yeah, like
Tense.
I don't know, I don't know if it's brilliant or annoying yet. I haven't played it enough
Yeah,
because I
right.
felt both, and I really couldn't give you it. But first impressions, it's horrified, and I can't wait for either expansions for this or another set in the series.
Very, very, very good.
Yeah,
Series.
I think they've talked about how this one they might actually have set it up to have more expansions, whereas the original one didn't. It's not really able to do that.
You ran out of monsters.
Well, also licensing issues. Like, you don't have to worry about that with the cryptids.
Yeah, nobody owns Bigfoot.
Yes.
I don't think.
I want to put a copyright strike on the Yeti.
The
Things
Yeti.
like that.
Yeah.
Copyright strike. Some assholes probably I think Bigfoot probably has his own YouTube channel and he just like uploads like weird libertarian shit and like he's been copyright struck.
Bigfoot is definitely a libertarian.
Yeah, and he's been copyright struck because like the Bigfoot's
name, a sovereign citizen. Bigfoot is also a monster truck, and so I'm thinking that like the real Bigfoot has been sued by the monster truck Bigfoot for identity, which is weird because Bigfoot's trying to avoid everybody.
Wasn't the Bigfoot in the Bigfoot cartoon show from the 80s sentient? The truck itself?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. I remember that. Yeah, that was a thing that happened.
I was more of a snakebite monster truck fan.
What was that?
I loved the tanks.
Yeah.
Like, because that's when they went too far, in my opinion. Let's just get some tanks.
What about the one that transformed into a giant robot?
Oh, right. Yeah, Truckosaurus.
Truckosaurus?
Was it Truckosaurus or Truckazilla?
Truckzilla.
Or Truckzilla.
All I know is you're spending money for the whole seat, but all you'll need's the edge.
Truckosaurus might have been like the Simpsons version of it. Like one of those. Truckosaurus or Truckzilla. I refuse to look them up.
Right.
Nobody do that. Don't. I promise.
I'm definitely not doing it. Jay's doing it, though.
No, look it up. I'm not looking. No. I'm asking.
I want somebody to be really, really mad.
I want the passengers to look it up. The travelers are not looking at anything.
I want somebody to be screaming at their speakers. It's this, you idiot. This one was the Simpsons reference, not this one.
You want someone like they have to pull their car over, hazard lights on, and they're just screaming at at the iPod dock.
Down.
You know, it's like
any angry emails you can send to.
I believe it was a
gmail.com.
I think if we ever. Like, let's say we're driving on the road and all of a sudden someone flags us down and it's like with their hazards, like, okay, because I've got a little jump box in my car. I can help out a motorist, and they go up to, y'all didn't know it was Truckazilla? And it's like, I'm going to be terrified.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to know how to handle that social encounter.
Dude, the shit from the 80s that was popular is mind-blowing. Like fucking monster trucks.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean...
Oh, I was a child of the 90s, and I loved monster trucks as well.
Right.
Like,
what child doesn't like monster trucks?
No, it wasn't just children in the 80s that liked monster trucks. It was like a cultural thing. Like, there was a Bigfoot cartoon.
I think if you took the word
I think
cultural
monster trucks
there,
can backflip now.
I think they did it back then.
They didn't do it back then. It was just like doing jumps and like running over cars and shit. Like now they literally have ramps where they can do backflips.
I think they were doing that early. Like
it was in like 2000s, I think. It wasn't in the 90s.
I went to the Biloxi Coliseum and saw Gravedigger do a backflip.
Gravedigger was a good one too.
That's Hall of Fame right there. There you go, ladies and gentlemen.
Monster trucks.
Thank you very much for listening to what we've been doing. But let's talk a little bit about what you've been asking us. It's a little bit of passenger feedback. From the passengers of the omnibus. Our friend Megan, a.k.a. Goon, sent us an email, gentlemen, and the email reads as thus. So I know James likes to run games, but I just learned Jody does too. When gaming together, how do you decide who's running the games? Hope this hasn't been discussed yet. Thank you, Megan, for your question. I think it's very... So, like, gaming groups, as far as, like, who's going to run the game tonight, or, like how do in your other circles have you decided, okay, who's going to be running the game tonight?
I think it depends on the crew that you're with currently, because usually when like me and Jay are hanging out and we come up to shoot the show on Wednesday, he'll be like, tomorrow I'm bringing up this, and that's usually what we'll end up playing. But for example, a week or so ago when we got finished playing Namiji, Brady was like, hey, do you want to play Cascadia? And I was like, oh, I'm down for that. So it's sort of fluid when it comes to board games. For me, when it comes to tabletop RPGs, it's hard for any of us to get a group together to get something going
for a long amount for any long length of time. Yes.
When it comes to my group of D&D friends, we always discuss on who wants to be a player in it, and then from there we discuss who wants to run the game, what they want to do with a campaign and things like that.
I
So
see that's interesting to me because usually for my groups it's like, okay, who wants to run, and then everybody, and then we leave everybody else out.
Because a lot of
But
people want to
used-
fight for that spot.
right? And so, but you're telling me your group likes to start with who wants to just sit down and be the player
Yes.
first? Okay,
a big portion of my play group are predominantly players, but they will take up the DM role if need be. So we kind of like alternate between campaigns, and it's like, okay, Jacob, you ran last game. You get to play. If you want to play the next one, you can, but you can DM if you want still.
I would always DM.
Yes.
If I was in a group where they told me, "Hey, do you want to play or do you want to run a game?" I'm always going to run a game.
The forever DM.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think and lately with us, and you maybe can back me up with this, Jay. It's a lot of it's been like, okay, we want to try out this system. Who's the one who bought the book and really and truly bought the book first and has spent
Learned
the
it.
most time with it?
Yeah.
And sometimes the most money.
Yeah.
and
yeah.
I think that also translates to the board game.
Yeah.
Area as well.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
the board games, it's like we bring up a pile of a couple of games, and it's who feels like running the stuff. We used to. I know back in the day, it would be a little bit more concrete of what's going to be played on Thursdays.
We used to have it hard scheduled. Like I would bring either one or maybe one or two, and we'd pick out of that. And I know you would bring something, and Stephen Gill, God rest his soul, he would bring a pile of games, and he'd have his group also in there. As
We would
well.
record vignettes for the store sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like about the things that we would be running in there, which I kind of want to do again. It's
I'm
just,
down.
We are just so compact with our time right
We
now.
have
Yeah.
a lot of things. We didn't have a podcast back then.
No, we
so
didn't. No, we didn't.
Yeah.
But you never know.
That's very true.
I eventually just want to have all of our names on like one of those roulette wheels, spin it, and whatever the arrow lands on, that's who brings the game. Just one random week.
That could be cool, but that to me could cause a little bit more chaos.
Yeah.
That is not fun.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of people in our group and in other groups I'm in that there are specific board games they don't want to play. Like, and I'm not going to push down anybody. Like, if you hate Dead of Winter, I don't want to push you into playing Dead of Winter because it's going to be not a fun time for anybody if you're sitting there not having a good time while you're playing.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. Just kind of a tangential kind of statement to make to this is kind of get together and say, what do we want to play, first of all?
right.
And then after that is, okay, so who wants to either run that, or if it's something that we can run without having somebody
And be
run it.
flexible too. Like,
Yeah.
be very flexible when it comes to. Otherwise, you're just not going to have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
I'd like a nice, little like 30 to 45 minute, just kind of fun game. Okay, Twilight Imperium. We're in hour 8, and that person is literally figuring out ways to kill us. Not in game.
There was a
Not
there-
in game.
Yeah, that's why usually I'll bring like a bigger game, and then I'll bring like stuff that takes 30 to 45
Yeah, because like
minutes.
I think what Vengeance usually is in your stack.
Yeah, because I've
that's
been
a little
wanting
bit of a longer game.
a lot of. I'll be honest with me, it's a selfish thing. I'm looking at my all the board games that I have, and I'm like, I feel like playing this.
That's the way it should be, though.
Because I will run a game and also play in it. I try to be as fair as possible and make sure everybody understands the rules and stuff. I know Jay doesn't like to do that. He's a little bit different. But if I'm bringing a game, I also want to play it because I bought it because I want to play it.
There was a run for a while, too, for me personally, where I just wanted to play heavy games all the time.
Yeah.
I will say there was I want to say like a month and a half period of you just bringing Ankh to the shop. And
Well,
playing
yeah,
that.
because I kickstarted it and I spent like $250 on it, and I'll be damned, I'm going to play it.
Yeah.
I also spent $250 on it. Still, other than getting it ranged in the box, haven't had a chance to crack it open.
Yeah,
So tomorrow we're playing Ankh. No.
I mean, I would be. Cool
I'm
with
down
that.
for whatever.
I want. It's going to be something medium weight at best tomorrow.
I'm
'cause like
down.
I said, I've worked.
Yeah.
I almost
Yeah.
worked 7 days straight. I'm enjoying this time with y'all here and with
Oh,
you
yeah.
passengers right now, just being able to just shoot the shit and have some good times. But I guess finally, Megan, to come back to your question, I think it just comes a matter of what the group wants to do and who feels most comfortable working in that attitude.
Yeah, it used to be more concrete, but it is less so nowadays.
I think life is so hectic where we have to make a lot of adjustments for that reason.
Yes.
So.
yeah.
So there you go. So thank you very much again. That is a question from our passengers for passenger feedback. If you would like to leave passenger feedback, we have an email at travelersontheomnibus, all one word, at gmail.com. Again, that is travelersontheomnibus at gmail.com. We would definitely like to hear from you. In addition, if you've been liking hearing this and would like to spread this word out to all of your friends, we are available currently on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, and Google, though the Google release usually happens a couple hours afterward. I think there's a little bit of a hang-up with the Anchor system, but it does end up eventually getting on there. So we'd definitely like to hear from more of you. We'd like to have more of you listening to us.
Also on Spotify, you can message the podcast as well.
You message podcast. And we also, with every one, we have a question, usually tied to our main topic, and sometimes we also have polls, and also tied to the main topic as well. And we definitely like to hear feedback from you from there as well. All righty. Gentlemen, it's main event time.
It's time.
It's time for the main event. And it is the bad boys and girls and men and women and all genders above, beyond, below, and between. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about supervillains, ladies and gentlemen. What makes a supervillain? Is it just ambition? Is it just level of power? Is it a combination of both? Is it nothing I've talked about? Is it something else entirely? What's the difference between a supervillain and an anti-hero? These questions and more we're looking to unravel here tonight. And I again throw it open to the bus. Gentlemen, who wants to start off on this?
I'd like to start with Norman Osborn.
Norman, that's a good one. That's a good one.
I think we have a businessman with a high intellect that his ambitions sort of pretty much start him into a down spiral of turning into what he became, which is the Green Goblin. But that was more of a, well, at least in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, more of a quote unquote accident that happened. So we could explore the accidental creation of a villain / supervillain if you care to.
I would even go as far as to say that he develops an alternate personality.
Well, that happened too in the movie. In the original story, there wasn't much of a backstory for Norman Osborn. It was just like he went insane.
Because with him, it was a surprise, really, because there was a whole mystery behind who was the Green Goblin,
right?
For a very long time.
Yeah, they never that. A lot of comic book storylines in general, at least back in the day. For example, I don't want to go on a tangent or whatever, but I don't think I've spoken about this on this show before, but you take Superman. Superman originally just could leap over a tall building, and then he could
really fast.
And then he could fly, and then he became bulletproof, and then he could see through walls, and then he could see through anything but lead all of a sudden because they had to create some sort of problem for him. So
but at the same time, he was also juggling planets.
That's also true.
And that's why Crisis on Infinite Earths had to happen.
They have to retcon backstories if they introduce, because they would introduce generic characters back in the day, and sometimes they didn't know if one would be popular or not, like the Green Goblin, so they would have them basically throwaway characters. Like the Green Goblin could have been a one and done for all they cared, and then they would bring him back, and they would bring him back because only so many ideas and so many characters. So now we got to come up with a backstory for this guy. So they would retcon. Oh, okay. Well, the Green Goblin is Norman Osborn. Norman Osborn used to run Oscorp, and then you go into all those details. So you have Norman, but in the same universe, you have the Kingpin as well. He's more of a mob boss kind of character. He's more of a villain with
he's usually seen as a lower level, but he has reached supervillain levels at times.
Right.
I think one of the things that makes a supervillain is their reach, so to speak, the reach of their villainy,
influence, and
like Kingpin most of the time is he's like Daredevil's guy, where it's like a low level. He's controlling the city, but Kingpin has every once in a while reached into higher levels of I think when he literally became the mayor of New York City for a little while and had a lot more
pull.
Weight.
Yeah.
But even then, that's only been every once in a while. Most of the time he cares more about okay, I'm just going to control New York City.
Right, and confined to that.
Yeah. Whereas, the Green Goblin, his schemes have got he was the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a little while. Well, it was Hammer then after Civil War in the comics.
He held one of the Infinity Gems at one point, I believe.
Possibly, I think. Yeah. But he had like the whole thing with the Dark Avengers and everything where
he was the Iron Patriot.
He was the Iron Patriot. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that definitely makes, bumps a villain up from a supervillain.
Would you call it reach, or would it be better to call it influence?
Influence, yeah, maybe.
say
Or like
influence.
size, like impact of their schemes, because, someone like the Joker, a lot of times they're just like, he's causing some chaos in Gotham City, but
Right.
quite often he will, and there was a time where he was like a ambassador to some Middle Eastern country, and he has
Well, that was the reason why Batman couldn't bring him in for the death of Jason
Yeah.
Todd.
Before we,
It wasn't just any Middle Eastern country, by the way. It was Iran.
right,
Okay,
right,
I
right.
couldn't exactly remember, and
The,
I didn't want to.
the Ayatollah Khomeini was drawn into that. Like, if you want to talk about crazy comics in the late 80s, early 90s,
Yeah, that was
Death in
that
the
was
Family.
batshit.
Death in the
Right.
Family was insane.
Yeah.
Let's give the fans the opportunity. And this wasn't like an internet poll or anything. You had to dial a number and
Yeah.
accept charges to save or kill a fake boy.
1-900 numbers.
Yeah.
And there was enough votes to kill the boy, so he was blowed up.
Of course. So for one example, before we start going all over the place, because there's definitely a lot of places we can go to.
Oh, yeah.
Since I started with Osborn, let's focus on the Spider-Man verse of Marvel, and let's look at the villains and what we would consider supervillains and anti-heroes in that, and then jump straight to Batman, because I definitely want to get into Batman's
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, are we
stuff.
going just by rogues galleries? Because I think, like, just in those two, I think we've named the two top rogues galleries, and depending on who you like prefer in that regard, whether it's Spider-Man or Batman, I think there's something also to be said there for when those groups team up. Who are the real supervillains,
Right.
and who are the ones that are just like, I don't want to say sidekicks, or just villains with just a little extra put on them.
So we were talking off mic about Venom, because he's definitely a big character in the Spider-Verse. Started off as a villain.
He started
straight
off
up
as a
He
villain.
started off as a costume.
Right.
He
Yeah.
was Spider-Man's
That's true.
costume
Yeah.
from Battle World.
So so for anybody who doesn't know the origin story of Venom, it's a alien symbiote that got into Peter Parker's costume, and he wore it for quite a few months in the comic book, I want to say.
Again,
longer than
the
that, I
original Secret Wars. His costume was ripped up, so the Beyonder gave him this. Oh, here's this symbiote, and it crafted into basically the Black Spider-Man,
Right.
Which is one of the coolest looks Spider-Man ever has. Like it's that '90s kind of cool that's kind of flashing out there. But at the end of Secret Wars, he just kept it for a bit. Then there was a pull to get him back in the red and blue, and so they took it in an extreme level.
Well, even after, like, he found out the symbiote was like evil because it was influencing him, and he got rid of the symbiote, but he literally kept the, like, he just
had
made
the
a
design
suit
for the
made
black
of
suit.
it.
Yeah,
And it wasn't until Venom came along that he got rid of that, because Venom scared the shit out of Mary Jane.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, he ripped the suit off in the bell tower because sonic, vibration. So part of the symbiotic suit laid it on Brock, Eddie Brock, who became Venom, and because it was a symbiote, it had inherited some of Spider-Man's abilities. So Brock, who always had an issue with Peter Parker anyway, became a really good adversary for a while. And even though he was really powerful at the beginning, he didn't, to me personally, right when it happened, didn't feel like a supervillain. Although I guess I could say most of the Spider-Verse villains weren't really, didn't seem until Carnage didn't really seem like,
See, I, like, just to addendum on that, I never saw Venom as a supervillain.
right,
I always saw him as
an adversary.
almost as a recurring villain of the week for Spider-Man. Like, Carnage is where the symbiotes become supervillainry, because now you're grafting the symbiote onto a truly evil human being. Eddie Brock's more misunderstood's the wrong word. It's just frustrated.
Yeah.
And then when he had a chance to take out his frustrations, he was taking them out on Spider-Man.
Well, while we're talking about, supervillain versus villain, I would also maybe want to posit an alternate definition of supervillain, and this could be, and I don't even necessarily 100% agree with this, but this could be any villain that has some kind of superpower, be it like, an actual superpower, or something like somebody who uses technology or something to give themselves some kind of super thing. That could be a very broad definition of supervillain, because I think oftentimes when people talk about supervillains, that is what they're meaning.
Right.
Okay. With that definition, do we consider? I know we're jumping away from like the Spider-Man.
That's
the
fine.
Spider-Verse.
That's fine.
Do you consider Magneto a supervillain or just a villain?
He is definitely a supervillain. The thing is,
that
that's a really broad definition, and by pretty much any villain that's in a comic, a superhero comic book is a supervillain.
Scorcher
Yeah.
is a supervillain.
Yeah, by that
by that definition.
But I would also say I would also argue that when most people talk about supervillains, that's they're also they're not limiting that definition. They're really just meaning the person that the superhero fights, basically.
That's fair.
I agree.
Fair. But I do think it opens up. I think it closes the argument of where in supervillainry it comes. No, it closes one argument like if they all have some sort of superpower, then they're supervillain, and then the question becomes, to what level are they a supervillain? Are they like A tier,
right?
S tier? If we're gonna go,
Because Venom just wanted to kill Spider-Man at first. That's all he wanted. Maximum. I was about to say Maximum Carnage.
Yeah,
the Super Nintendo Carnage in Venom game.
One of the better LJN games.
Very true. Carnage wanted to kill Spider-Man and everybody else.
Yes. But
So
that goes to that influence and scale thing.
Intent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he's had very wide, intent and impact. Like people have
motive.
People have had to team up to fight him. And going back to your question, Ethan, yeah, I think definitely, especially in the beginning, Magneto is a supervillain. He has a really high power set, and he has done like earth-shattering things. And depending on the universe that you're talking about, he's destroyed the world almost. Now, an interesting thing with Magneto is he's gone back and forth from being kind of more of an anti-hero. He's joined the X-Men several times. I know right now the X-Men they're doing some really weird and I would also say interesting things with them. I haven't really kept super current, so I don't even know right this moment what in comics if he's even like a good guy or a bad guy right now. I think he's maybe a bad guy, because I think they've kind of reintroduced like some Trial of Magneto stuff. But again, I haven't been on that. But yeah, definitely he would be in the supervillain, because he's like one of the top villains of. And
besides just that, another factor that makes a villain a supervillain is charisma. So, Magneto has another thing in common that a lot of other supervillains have in common, and that he gathers other people that are like-minded, or at least can control them to a certain degree to give them some sort of cause, right? Like his team of people like believe in what he's saying and what he wants to accomplish for some reason, and I think charisma has a lot to do with that.
Oh, another thing that just kind of popped in my head about the difference between a villain and a supervillain. I think we can also look at the level of the hero that they're fighting. Spider-Man is really and truly, like, he's done a lot of Avengers stuff lately in the past, couple, decade and a half. But really, he's a low-level superhero.
He is.
And that's why most of his villains are low-level. Yeah, and you have, like, someone like Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, that kind of takes that over the top.
Right.
Daredevil, he's a low-level superhero.
Right, because they're all confined to Manhattan for the most part.
Pretty much.
And Brooklyn.
But when you get to it's the level of the hero that also rises above that I think raises their villains up to Superman is super powerful, so all of his villains are going to really be super villains.
They've had to go outside the realm of reality.
Because all of them have to be able to take on Superman one way or the other, whether it's intellectually through Lex Luthor or
literally being run by his only weakness, which is Metallo.
Yeah.
Or is a slightly dumber off version of Superman, which is Bizarro Superman.
Yeah.
Or the thing Brainiac, which is about the man of it. That is the adversary for the Man of Tomorrow, which is Superman.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of facet there. There's also the one that finally got to kill him, which was
Apocalypse?
not
Doomsday.
Doomsday, my bad. Doomsday.
Apocalypse hit him with the Omega effect, and Superman was like,
No,
"Shot."
Darkseid. Your
Darkseid,
Apocalypse
yeah.
is the X-Men villain.
X-Men
That's
supervillain.
That's right, my
Now,
bad.
he's a supervillain.
He's definitely a supervillain
Yeah.
because he's an upper tier.
I think on a greater scale, power level wise, than Magneto,
Yeah.
for obvious reasons. One of the things I would think there is something to be said about power level, about what they are capable of doing with the tools that they have in front of them.
Lex Luthor. I mean, you mentioned him. He
Lex
is
Luthor, he doesn't have any powers
probably the
whatsoever.
most powerful without powers supervillain in at least in the Superman pocket of DC.
Yeah.
For sure, in my personal opinion.
Now, it's interesting that you say Lex Luthor because one of the things I was thinking of leading up to the recording was a lot of the times these supervillains or villains, they don't believe they're doing wrong. Like
No, they don't.
Look at Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
He sees himself as an American businessman who is suddenly having American citizens put their trust in a little alien that no one can stop. So he has to put himself on that pedestal to put some kind of limit on him.
his central philosophy is that the perfection of Superman lessens everybody else. Like, I can't be the top of the food chain because Superman exists. That's his main thing.
I think you've almost got it right, but the existence of Superman lessens Lex
Luthor. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why he's
I'm thinking of like alternate.
and that's
Luthors,
why
that-
he's a villain.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he's a villain in that regard. I think there's something to be said about somebody who had a similar vein, but it's not that Superman diminishes just him, but diminishes all of mankind.
Yes.
By being the 911 for the entire world at all times. I think I think there's some interplay there, and if anybody knows about any characters, villain, hero, or otherwise, that have felt that way about Superman, I would love to hear about it. I can't think of one off the top of my head right now, but I think there's something that could be said about that in that regard.
Yeah. Speaking of another supervillain who is definitely a supervillain and thinks that he is the one person, like his whole thing is that he 100% believes that he is the one person who can save humanity, and that is Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom actually was like the first villain to actually successfully not really conquer, but invade and take what he wanted from Wakanda. Before that, nobody had ever done that. And he did that because he wanted to steal the vibranium that they had. And they were like, okay, well, he's gotten through this, this, and this. And the Black Panther was like, okay, but he's got this one last thing that is like controlled by our goddess where he has to, be of pure intent. And he was able to get by that because the goddess looked at him and was like, you truly believe that you need this to save everybody. And that's one of the things that makes him very scary is he's very arrogant, but he also believes that mankind will cease to exist unless he rules all of them. And I think that's something very interesting about him. That's why he's one of my favorite villains.
I love
really.
Dr. Doom, man.
Yeah.
All Marvel superheroes come from one of three places: magic, mutancy, or science. Science would gives you Iron Man. Mutancy gives you the X-Men and also the Brotherhood of Mutants. And magic gives you like Doctor Strange and all the kind of magic side of things. He is, I think, one of the few characters that crosses all three of those.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Because
And I think that's another thing that's kind of uniqueness. I think is also for supervillains. Like, it's not just like if all of them were the same railroad villain that tied the lady to the tracks and twirling their mustache, that'd be one thing. But when you look at somebody like a Doom, like a Luthor, which are similarly archetypal, but they are completely unique amongst themselves, at least my opinion.
Yeah.
When I think of like that, like Teutonic Knight, like full on body armor in this deep green, the cloak, walking down the stairs of this dim lit castle that also has like the scientific equipment in here. That is just so, one, iconic, but two, so unique to that character. And that's something that draws it. This is something or someone that is important and for completely bad reasons.
And in the 2099 series, there was like about I don't know, like 6 or 8 of those.
Was it ever determined he was the same Doom, or was
He
it
was
a different
not.
person?
He was
Okay,
not.
that's what I
He was
thought.
not the same Doom. And in all that series, there was for anybody who doesn't know, back in like the mid '90s, there was a line of Marvel comics called 2099, and they were all set in a futuristic Marvel universe in the year 2099. There was a Spider-Man, there was an X-Men, there was a Doom. There were like a couple of more. There was a Punisher.
Yeah.
I bought all the number ones. A lot of them fell off really quickly because they weren't popular. And I think a lot of that reason has to do with the exception of the Doom 2099, which that one and the Spider-Man comic were the ones that like lasted the longest as far as I can remember. And the reason for that is because Spider-Man was similar enough to Peter Parker's Spider-Man, but different enough for it to be interesting because it was in 2099. The Doom in that one was more of an anti-hero / hero compared to the Doom that we know from the existing universe in Marvel.
Okay, so we've cracked the glass. Let's go full on, because this was a question that when we came up with the idea for it, this one kind of came a few days to me, and I want to make it. So you have supervillains, but you also have anti-heroes. People that I think have good intentions or believe that they have good intentions, but carry them out in very, I don't want to say sadistic, I want to say, but just very non-traditional
vigilante.
ways.
They're
More Machiavellian, like the ends justify the means.
they're more ends
Because you
justify
have
the means.
Batman, who's a hero most of the time, depending, but then you have the Punisher.
Yeah.
Right.
Who is the anti-hero, which will do what he thinks is right for justice, even if it means dispatching everybody in the room to get to the one bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it requires murder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're breaking commandments left and
Yeah,
right.
he's
at this point.
going to murder you. That's his thing.
Where is the line, or what is the line between supervillain and antihero?
That could be, and I think oftentimes that can be a very fuzzy line because you have so many supervillains who go back and forth. We brought up Magneto. There was actually a time when Doom was like Iron Man had disappeared, and it was just after the newest version of Secret Wars where he was like the main villain, and he had kind of been severely weakened, but he was like, okay, Iron Man's not around, I'm going to be Iron Man now, and I'm going to try and do right. And there was a little bit of time where he actually was, he drifted into anti-hero territory because he was trying to do right, but then he was also doomed, so he was an asshole about it and not maybe doing things in ways best. And, Magneto does kind of the same thing, where sometimes his vision will start to align with Xavier's, and he will he'll join, Cyclops, who is, to kind of do more positive things. I think that oftentimes it can be argued that can be a very fuzzy line.
I think it's also about their perception of what they conceive as what's innocent at the time, and what is a viable egregious party that they need to dispatch.
I definitely think the lens looking back definitely changes it.
Yeah.
I think it does
100%
more.
changes it. So I want to make Brady happy, which is normally not what I like to do on the show.
Yeah, that is true.
Brady, talk about Black Adam.
Black Adam? Oh, sweet. So, if you remember, nowadays he's called Shazam. Back in the day, he used to be called Captain Marvel. That's kind of what I remember him as, because I read a lot of the older comics. So, Captain Marvel or Shazam nowadays, he was given powers by magic, and he basically, by saying the name Shazam, he becomes this almost Superman, very close to Superman-like power. It's a little kid, and he says the word, and then he becomes super powerful. Has all these cool powers, can share them with his friends and everything. Well, that's not the first guy that the wizard chose. The wizard originally chose somebody from ancient Egypt called Teth Adam. And Teth Adam was an adult who was also a slave, I believe. And he gave that power, his power to Teth Adam. Teth Adam became Black Adam. Well, Black Adam then used his powers to take revenge on all the people who made him a slave. And he also used those powers to take control of his native land of Kandahak. I think that's how you pronounce it. I've never actually heard it.
I've always thought it was Kondak.
It might be.
It's a very...
I've literally never heard it
the
said.
The
so.
H that I think is in there just extends that A out a little bit, so I think it's Kondak. I know it's said about 500 times in Injustice 2.
Okay, see, I never got too far into Injustice 2, but the wizard kind of banishes him, and then he comes back, in more modern times. at first he's like basically the Venom to Shazam, then Captain Marvel, where, you know, he has his same power set and it's just the opposite thing, and he's really difficult, and, you know, he even becomes eventually becomes like the dictator of Kahndaq. But during the 52 series after Infinite Crisis, he becomes more of an anti-hero, and they start really exploring him more as that, because he meets a woman who gets the powers of Isis, not that one, the actual Egyptian goddess, and it kind of softens him, and he becomes more of he gets his own family, and he becomes more of an anti-hero. Like, he's still like, I will, you know, this guy who's you know, doing bad things, I'll kill him, and I'll do it in a really horrific way, but, you know, I'm trying to do good. So I think, yeah, he's one of those who goes back and forth a lot between anti-hero and villain. So, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
I'd like to talk about Darkman for a second, if I can.
You would like to talk about Darkman?
Yes.
Ooh. Sam Raimi somewhere is smiling.
Yes.
Go for it.
Darkman, which was a one movie. There wasn't two sequels with other actors.
Darkman died.
It never happened. They didn't resurrect a character that blew up in a helicopter in the second one called Revenge of Durant or anything like that. By the way, in case you didn't know, there were two Darkman comic book series. There was a independent one that was like many years later that was actually really good. It was a six issue. I had all six. They were great. It was really good. It was a retelling of the original movie story. Then there was a really terrible Marvel Darkman comic that they tried to do that was really bad and didn't have that many issues of a run. Darkman is, I want to say, an anti-hero, but on the lower scale, like in the Spider-Man kind of verse, where you have a character who is a scientist. He's got a girlfriend, and he's trying to get her to marry him, but she's just not ready. And she works for a corporation where the guy that's running the corporation is trying to tear down a lot of buildings to build what he visions as the new city of the future. She gets a hold of something called the Belisarius Memorandum by accident. She takes it home, and these thugs find out about it and try and find out where it is because it's got some incriminating evidence in it.
If I don't get this out of my brain, it's going to destroy me. So
Yes.
the Belisarius Memorandum, I believe, is named that way because Donald Belisarius was one of the executive producers. On
I believe it.
I think that's what. I'm not 100% sure, but that fired up a memory in my brain.
So Liam Neeson in the movie plays the character that becomes Darkman. He's a scientist, and him and his understudy are working on a way of being able to replace people's skin, like in burn victims and prosthetics and things like that. And I know I'm going a lot of minor details here, but anyway, the artificial skin, they realize, only lasts 99 minutes unless it's in the dark. And so they're trying to figure out how to fix it. And right when they're about to figure it out, the mob guys show up and basically torch the place, blow it up with him in it. And, you know, the scene goes into where he's in the hospital and they've actually had to cut off all of his nerve endings and half of his face is missing. And so he wants revenge, but he also wants to tie up those loose ends with his girlfriend. And so he goes back to what's left of his lab and puts some stuff back together in a warehouse and is able to reproduce the faces of the villains in the movie and in the comic book series with the latex experiments that he was working on for the skin replacements or whatnot. And his aspirations of being the anti-hero, it's just to take out everybody that wronged him. And it was more of a revenge thing than anything else, but he's more of an anti-hero.
If you ever want a good psycho scene at a carnival, Darkman.
Oh, yeah.
You can tell Sam Raimi directed it during that scene right there.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Also, Bruce Campbell makes an appearance at the very end of the movie, right before the credits roll.
Yeah.
All right, Ethan, drop us some information about some stuff about supervillains and antiheroes.
I think it would be a disservice to not mention this particular supervillain. I wouldn't say that he is the worst, but the worst of, when I say worst, like He's the best at being a supervillain. Thanos.
Okay.
Thanos is by far one of the greatest supervillains to have be seen in the Marvel universe.
I actually have a disagreement with you on that.
Okay.
I think that Thanos is only as good as the gauntlet that he is wearing. Now, I'm not saying he's not powerful, because the man is the Titan. Indeed, is powerful, but there are way more powerful. Cosmic. Oh, go ahead, Jay.
No, finish yours, because I have a counterpoint to your.
Okay, all right. There are way more powerful beings in the Marvel universe than he. Now, definitely on the scale of charisma, intent, and want, and what he wants to accomplish, he's up there. I'm not saying he's not a
By his
supervillain.
accomplishments, I think at the very least he's up there as one of the most. He's a top tier guy.
He's definitely a top tier guy without the gauntlet. With the gauntlet, he definitely gets up to the higher realms of things.
In the comic books.
But then again, Adam Warlock was an adversary with the Infinity Gauntlet. So
yeah.
But not even taking into account of what he's done with the gauntlet. Without he grew up on Titan, and Titan was a struggling planet dealing with overpopulation, little to no resources.
right.
Everyone called him mad for suggesting population control.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But that's what he set out to do. He went planet to planet, solar system to solar system, effectively wiping out half of every single planet. And what did it do? It led to those planets thriving afterwards. Yes, he is insane for doing it.
You want an interesting Easter egg with that?
Go for it.
So in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, when they're all in the jail and they go do the lineup, they flash things on the screen, and they show that Gamora is the last of her kind. And then they later show that, Gamora was found by Thanos because he went to her planet and they killed half of the people. So actually it's a subtle nod to Thanos's idea doesn't actually work. I don't know if that was a purposeful thing or if an ended up thing, but it's a nice
gun,
little
just like put it in there.
It's a nice little coincidence that either way.
Yeah.
My statement is this: when Thanos is chasing the gems, he's unstoppable. The minute he gets the prize, that's when he fucks up. That's when he goes from supervillain to the biggest idiot, stupid son of a bitch in the history of the Marvel universe.
Well, let's also, we're really talking about the movies. In the comic book, he didn't do that because he wanted to save the universe.
Right.
He did that because he wanted to court death.
Yes.
He wanted
the attention of the personification of death.
He wanted to make smoochies with death. This was all for a girl.
An uninterested girl.
Yeah, very uninterested girl. She never ever. She chooses literally everybody but Thanos. He's really bad at it.
So what we're saying is Thanos is the first incel.
Yes, kind of,
So that is
Thanos is the first simp.
He is.
Yeah, that's
he's
a good
definitely
one.
the first.
He's definitely
simp.
the first simp.
He
There
also
you go.
has a bubble helicopter, so
Yeah, there's the Thanos copter.
in the
that is the thing.
1970s had the Thanos helicopter,
with Thanos on the side of it.
so that you know whose it is. Otherwise, you would say, "Who's that giant blue and purple dude?" Oh, it's Thanos.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have known that.
the intent for comic book characters, depending on the time period that those comic books came out, compared to what they've rewritten, a lot of people don't know that the Guardians that you see on screen are not the Guardians from the original comic book that nobody read.
Yeah, the original. I was so happy when the Guardians of the Galaxy movie was announced because those are very weird things, and they
handed
and
to
they
the
ran with
best
it.
director who could.
Oh,
do
yeah.
them.
But I think I don't particularly want to bring him up, but I think somebody's going to say something, and I don't feel like getting a strongly worded email about it. So when we talk about, we mentioned the Spider-Man Rogues Gallery and the other best Rogues Gallery,
Batman.
I think the one guy really in that
There's one
goes
guy.
up to supervillain level is the Joker.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I'm kind of tired of the Joker, to be honest. He's not my favorite Batman villain. He's not my favorite DC anything. Like, it takes a lot for me to be interested in anything having to do with the Joker.
Are there
now.
any? My memory is awful, but I can't really remember any, with the exception of any influence from the other parts of the DC universe as far as Gotham is concerned, supernatural villains in Gotham itself, at least with the original Rogues at all, right? Except for Poison Ivy. Did they do something with her to where they made her sort of, supernatural in any sort of way?
She's metahuman.
Yeah,
She's always been
metahuman.
metahuman.
Yeah.
Mr. Freeze, if we put him in Marvel for a sec, he comes from the science track of getting your superpowers. So he's, I think, got some metahuman to him too.
If you want, you could put Clayface in that situation.
Well, that's the animated series, but yes, I see what you're saying there.
Yeah.
That's really one of the few.
We focused a great deal on comic books. I want to take it just very briefly because I think supervillainry can exist far beyond that.
Oh yeah, 100%.
yeah.
But I think
Let's take a left turn.
I think leaving it there. I think, and I just kind of want to go around the table to maybe everybody's favorite supervillain, maybe to kind of finish it off. But I'd like to take this over here. To me, the Joker is the best supervillain in all of comics. Not best. Let me apologize for that. What I mean to say is he is my favorite supervillain in all of comics because my favorite supervillain of all time is Kefka Palazzo. For those who only know him by his first name, it's because you never looked inside of the manual for Final Fantasy 3/6. And he is evil just 'cause. There is something to be said about indescribable evil and evil that you can't. Why are you so evil? Because it's today. And there's like a lot of people. I like Freeze to me. Mr. Freeze is not a villain. He does villainous things, but it's coming
Especially
from
recently, yeah.
But it's coming
Right.
from a place that was like his wife is
especially in
taken
the
from him.
animated series, they definitely dove
Well, all
deep
the
into
stuff that
that.
happens in the animated series, they really brought into the comics
More character
nowadays.
to
Right.
the
And even with
characters.
the White Knight universe of Batman,
Yeah,
like
where
Batman,
Joker had because the Batman was so bad, Joker had to
Batman
become
was.
the good
I mean,
man.
Mr. Freeze like flips like two issues in, like he's working as a good guy,
Yeah.
the whole time.
Yeah, but for me, when evil is you can't even relate to it. To me, that's the strongest evil because not only now can I not in any way, shape, or form attach to you, I am afraid of you because it's
Right.
something that I cannot understand. Like Kefka Palazzo poisons the city of Doma just because he's annoyed.
Yeah.
It's like they're holding out, poison the water.
Yeah.
They're killing all these people. Poison the water. Don't worry about it. And like, oh my, like that. And when that evil finally gets the power to match up with it, he destroys the world. The heroes fail. Halfway through the game, you lost.
Yeah.
And on that day, the world was changed forever.
Right.
That is one of the most haunting things I've ever had to face in a video game.
Yeah.
Definitely. Final Fantasy 6 is.
Yeah, that's he's definitely up there.
And then you get to the end, and like each one of these people who have gone through hell express to you why they want to live, why they continue to fight. Every one of them has a reason that connects them to to each other, and there's a reason why they are standing in front of Kefka. And Kefka's answer is, "Bah, whatever." Like he is the absolute definition of nihilism.
Yeah, villains.
100%. Like
Yeah.
I don't like to give too much credit to the Nolan Batmans, but the notion, especially when Michael Caine is explaining it, it's like
Yeah.
when some people they don't care about the money, they don't care about being rich,
Some
or just
people
about being famous. They just want to
wanna watch.
destroy. They just want to
They
watch the
watch
world.
the
They
world
want to
burn.
They want
destroy.
chaos.
They
Yeah.
want to destroy, and that's all they want to do. And that for me, like that's why for me, supervillain wise, Kefka's the greatest supervillain of all time.
yeah, that's a really
good one.
Yeah.
That's a really, really good one.
Yeah.
Because especially in video games, like your villains are not always that memorable.
Yeah. And
Even in
especially
Final
like-
Fantasy games.
Especially in Final Fantasy games, they had a problem of you had this really good villain, and then something comes along and we kick them out to have this other guy. Oh, he was the guy all along.
My favorite version of Ganon is from Breath of the Wild. It's not my favorite Zelda game that still goes to Ocarina of Time, but my favorite version of Ganon is Calamity Ganon because he's not a person. He's this force of nature.
He's
So you like the more kind of eldritch, I guess, would be the word.
Yeah,
the type of
there's a good bit of
villain.
H.P. Lovecraft in that regard, but I also like it when it's a man. Like Kefka was before he became like this dark god at the center of the world. He was just a man
Yeah.
who did not give one fuck about any other living creature on the planet. And once he had the power to do that, he didn't come to a revelation that, oh no, like we're all one big happy family. No, I now get the chance to destroy them all, and the ones that are left are going to worship me, and I'm just going to bathe in this, just reveling in the evil.
There's one man I would like to equate to him, and that is a one and only Thomas Riddle, also known as Lord Voldemort.
That's a supervillain.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Lord Voldemort,
100%.
in my opinion, is evil incarnate.
He's definitely evil.
No matter what you look at.
Well, I mean, shades of Nazism.
Yeah.
You know,
Also true.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
Like he went to lengths as to split his soul into 7 parts, just so that way he can have immortality, have infinite power, have infinite followers, just absolute world domination, and just everything about him is just vile in every sense.
There you go. Older gentleman of the podcast, what about you? Like what, like all time, like favorite supervillain?
Man.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And honestly, something I probably should have been thinking about more.
Also true.
And to be honest, with all the comic book talk, that's really most of what I got into
The
my
comic
head.
book field, like I mean, you got a veritable like almost unending field of them.
Yeah, when it comes to like comic book stuff, like Doom and Magneto are my favorites because they have like understandable motivations. Especially Magneto, you know, he was a survivor of the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And that definitely colored his perception of humanity, like I think it would with pretty much all of us. And I think that's a very and I'm a big history buff, so like that's a very interesting thing. Come back to me, and I may be able to think of like people outside of comic books.
We'll treat this as Boomer. We'll go around one more time. Get back to you,
Yeah,
Jody.
we'll do it again at the wrap up. Really, when you said that, I thought for a good minute outside of comic books, even though all of our brains are drained because we were on a podcast before we recorded this show tonight. Jigsaw.
Oh,
from
yes.
Saw.
Yes. Yes.
The planning, the cunning, the reveal from the first film especially.
That first film is a great movie.
Oh yeah,
Not great horror movie.
No, it was
that is
great.
A great
Yeah.
movie.
It was.
As a side tangent, that is probably one of the best plot twists in any movie.
Well, in modern history or modern cinema history, I would have to agree with you for the most part, especially in the genre it's in, but not overall. But that's just from
Shout out to my friend Jason Weiss, who just recently celebrated his 10th anniversary with his wife Kristen.
Nice.
Jason, Kristen, love y'all to death.
Congratulations.
Happy anniversary.
There you go. He said, "Jay, you need to go see this." Like, and it looked goofy to me.
Mhm.
It honestly looked goofy to me.
Mm-hmm.
That is the only time, except with maybe the exception of the first Avengers movie, when I was in a theater and the entire crowd rose to their feet, going, "Holy shit!" So no, like I got to back Ethan on this one. That's one of the best twists of all time.
Yeah.
right.
What and what's great is like they foreshadow that because they mentioned like don't forget X marks the spot, and the way
Right.
he's lying down is
Right,
in an X.
right.
And like if you're
You-
thinking
yeah.
about that, like there's subtleties there that you can pick up on. I know subtlety in a Saw series that went out the window with 2, but in that first movie, oh yeah,
You know, the thing about Saw after I watched it was like, man, that was great. That was one of the best horror movies I've seen ever. And then when they announced the second one was getting made, I went, how? How are you going to follow that up? And
for me, it was like the fourth one. How?
no,
Yeah.
He's dead. Spoilers. He's dead.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Let's not go too deep into that.
How you follow up that one is you take a movie that originally wasn't a Saw movie and you make it a Saw movie. Even though I really actually like 2, and
Well, they tried to make 7 is what they tried to do. They tried to make a crime, mystery with murder and all that.
Those first 3 movies work because of 2 words: Tobin Bell. Tobin Bell, that voice, and like he doesn't get to show it off in 1, but in 2 and 3, like he's dying on an operating table in 3, and he has no less control than in 1 and 2.
Right.
And it's insane. Like that acting is like Tobin Bell knocked that out of the
Oh
park.
yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
That's why they kept it going for so long.
Yeah, and bringing him back in flashbacks or
they had
side
to.
stories.
They
and
had
things
to.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But yeah, Jigsaw.
all right, last supervillains. I'm going to start with mine because against this guy, you've got no chance. No chance in hell. Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon's a supervillain.
Yeah.
He's a multi-billionaire owner of a giant wrestling company that if he doesn't like you, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it, son. Stone Cold Steve Austin, you're not going to be showing up in here anymore. You're going to be like one of the greatest heels in the history of wrestling. I think the epitome of supervillainry.
On-screen persona, Vince McMahon.
And then in real life, he's actually also a supervillain.
Yeah.
So Ethan, what about you?
I think
last one.
Follow it up with Elon Musk. Yeah.
Oh, now we're gonna get.
I think when it comes to all-time favorite supervillains.
Yep, we're off Twitter now. Okay, so
Okay,
so there we go. Okay.
Awesome.
Keep going, Ethan.
I love Venom. Venom is always
Venom.
Venom. He's always been a favorite of mine ever since I was
Supervillain or
kid.
anti-hero? When you think about him,
I gotta go villain.
you gotta go.
I
villain?
have to go villain with it.
Okay.
Just everything I see about an opposing force beating down on one of my favorite superheroes. Just that imagery is always paints a villain to me.
There's something to be said. I think there's a good note there about how much you are devoted to a hero, like what your fandom is. Like I can definitely like if it was my favorite. Like I didn't mention Sinestro,
Right.
but Sinestro beating up
Yeah.
on Hal Jordan, like Hal Jordan Green Lantern is my favorite superhero of all time. So
Yeah.
he's a little bit higher up there to me. But then when I thought about it, kind of a more even eye, like certainly during the Jeff Johns run on Green Lantern, I think he really elevated Thal Sinestro.
Yeah.
But over time, he was just the guy that had a bottle of mustard and then later a yellow ring to confound him.
Right. I think you have to also consider there's so much content and so much IP, like Marvel, DC, non-comic book related movies and things like that. You almost have to, like when we were talking earlier about just Spider-Man, one of the reasons why I mentioned let's just talk about Spider-Man is because once you start getting outside the realm of just a little pocket of one universe, you start trying to compare apples to oranges really, and it's really hard to do,
Yeah, and when you talk about power levels and influence between DC and Marvel, those are the levels are oftentimes very different and things
right,
like that.
because we said,
The power level on DC side to me more than maxes out the Marvel stuff until you get to the cosmic entities, and even then there's cosmic entities on DC side that you can bring up that just don't get brought up anytime.
that's very true. Mixoplex.
Brady, one last villain for the road.
So one of my favorite authors is Brandon Sanderson, and he wrote a trilogy of books called the Reckoners trilogy. It's they're kind of young adult, but it's basically like this. It's regular Earth, but then this comet comes through called Calamity, and as this comet is passing through, or it's a star, I can't remember. It's been a little while, but as this thing shows up, people start getting superpowers, and they call them epics. But these people also start being evil, like the powers make them evil. And the main character is a guy who sees this one epic, Steelheart, who is basically like Superman with even more powers, but really, really evil. Think Homelander style from The Boys, which is something we didn't really touch on. But he actually sees him in a weak state, and it's him. The first book is him trying to get revenge on Steelheart, because Steelheart also kills his father. But I think that's a very interesting take on the idea of superheroes and supervillains, because and they do talk about later in the other two books more about what is making these people actually be evil from getting the powers and things like that. So it's an interesting twist on that supervillain superhero tropes and things like that. So if you're ever interested in reading those, there's some pretty good books.
I think I want to mention one more thing real quick.
Actually, I was literally about to throw you. You had the last villain, sir.
All right. So for me, and this is going to be, it could be a little controversial. Okay. So I mentioned this before off this show. Stephen King's novel and movie, The Dark Half. The villain in that movie is an internal one. So it's like the villain within that he has to battle. So it's like metaphorical, but actually happens also. Personification of everything bad within you. So, if you could throw it to the one of the really hokey episodes of Star Trek, the OG series, where Kirk gets not split in two, but he meets his alternate.
No, he gets split in two.
That's true. By
a transporter.
That's true. That's true. So like pure Kirk and pure evil Kirk are two separate entities, and it's almost on that level of having to embrace the bad stuff that's in you. But so the Dark Half, that evil character is pretty damn evil. So.
No, it's a very good one. I like that. Again, the greatest supervillain is the one inside of you. I kind of like that idea. All right, so we've gone over a good bit. Again, mostly focusing on the comic book side of things, but I think we did a good job going a little bit afield and kind of getting an idea of supervillains outside of that. We mentioned a whole bunch of things of what constitutes a supervillain. Influence. We mentioned Norman Osborn, Kingpin. Intent, Carnage. I would put Joker there as well, just because his intent is just for me also Kefka Palazzo, the idea of pure nihilism kind of there.
Something I was thinking about with Kingpin, where we talked about how he's usually low level. One of the times where I would argue he was he went into a supervillain level is in Spider-Man Enter the Spider-Verse, where he is literally like fucking with the multiverse and causing.
Wasn't he also a big part of Fear itself?
What? No, that was I can't remember his real name. I think it was Cole. No, it was the Serpent who was like Odin's brother.
Yeah, Odin. Yeah,
that was the main.
I don't know
thing.
why I thought
he wasn't.
Did he
wasn't
get one of the Bane? Didn't he?
He didn't get one of the
Okay,
hammers.
maybe I'm losing my mind then. There you go. We talked about charisma, Magneto. I think kind of first and foremost on that one. They're who they fight against. We have Lex Luthor. One person we didn't mention, I just want to mention Baron Zemo, leader of the Masters of Evil. I think he's I think the de facto leaders of the was like. Meanwhile, at the Fortress of Solitude, with the
Legion of Doom.
Thank you, Legion of Doom, Masters of Evil. I think those leaders there. Power level, we mentioned Apocalypse, of course. Briefly mentioned Darkseid.
Yeah,
I wrote down against Doctor Doom, class by himself. Just because I just kind of in my head I described it out. Just again that iconic vision of just like this old world new world blend. Just this idea that he's got this one root in the evil of the past and one root in the evil in the future. I will say, just as a quick weird tangent, I'll bring it back. The loss of Reed Richards in popular Marvel is one of the things that I absolutely hate about this age of Marvel right now. In the comics, he might be there, but
for a while it wasn't until very recently because the Fantastic Four they canceled their series.
They did that for a
time.
reason.
Yeah, they did that. For a very
we can go into
reason.
Business in Marvel and DC and Sony and Fox and all.
But the fact that we haven't gotten a really good Doctor Doom, in movies
because Sony owns that,
No, Fox had it.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Fox had X-Men and the Fantastic.
That's right. That's right.
But
that's why they killed Reed Richards.
Again, but just like I kind of put him class by himself. But I just kind of talking with everybody. I think there's more that are kind of on his level. I'm gonna be arrogant. I think we knocked it out of the park. I think this was a very good discussion.
What about favorite anti-heroes? Did we go over favorite anti-heroes? I want to say. Quick.
Let's do real quick.
Yeah,
we've wasted.
Yeah, we don't have to go into details for why.
I'm just gonna do real quick. I'm not gonna steal yours. I'm just gonna go with the Punisher. I think Punisher because he feels like he wants to do good. I think a lot of it is out of selfishness. He's seeking justice, but he's seeking justice for a family he can never get back. Ethan, anti-hero.
I'm gonna go with Spawn.
Spawn.
Ooh,
we hadn't mentioned Todd McFarlane.
Pull the Image comics out of your butt there.
There you go. There we go.
Yeah. With me, it's Black Adam. Probably. He's definitely very, very.
I
high
thought
up
about
there.
saying Black Adam, but I knew you stabbed me. So yeah, I made sure.
Well, then I would have just mentioned Black Adam again.
Just double up on Black Adam.
I'm gonna say the Max. No.
Oh God.
That's kind of a good one.
That is kind of good one.
Yeah.
Batman 2. Sometimes he's a hero. Sometimes he's an anti-hero, though.
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Um, But actually, it's the Punisher.
But it's actually
It's Frank Castle, the Punisher.
So it's instead of 2 votes Black Adam, it's 2 votes Punisher. So there you go.
Yeah.
All righty, ladies and gentlemen, the bus is rolling into the final station. I want to thank you very much for showing up and being around with us as we talk about our favorite supervillains and what makes a supervillain. Who's going to give some of the
Kevin Shelton and Jared Hubbard have
the one we actually know?
Yeah. That's why I started with Kevin first.
There you go. Exactly. Knock that out. Kevin, we will remember your name regularly.
It's the last name, my guy. It's only the last name because we have so many names.
We have so many Kevins.
That's true. We have a lot of Kevins. They have a show called Silence Your Cell Phones. It is a podcast and a YouTube channel about movies and streaming and all of the good stuff that they love and they want to share. And they got some good insight on pretty much everything. So check them out.
Live shows every week on YouTube at Silence Your Cell Phones. Check them out. Ethan, do Fearology.
You read my mind.
I want out!
What was the last episode? No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
No, I'm not anymore. What was the last episode?
The Fearology is a podcast. Fearology is a podcast.
Horror
that
in the
is
Second Dimension.
Horror in the Second Dimension. It is hosted by Jody Lee Kite, one of our own. Uploaded once a month. He goes on a deep
Something
dive.
like that.
Something like that.
I didn't know a month was 12 months long.
He goes on a deep dive of horror movies and movies from his personal collection and gives the history of movies. You can find him on Anchor and Spotify. That is Fearology.
Again, Horror in the Second Dimension on anime horror, and I think the next one he's working on is J&K.
Yeah, Japanese horror and Korean horror, but that will be the episode that I do with you guys, hopefully.
Oh,
Yeah, I'd definitely be on there. I can talk about some.
We've literally gone on radio. Literally,
talk
this
about-
show had mentioned that.
Yeah, I can talk about some Korean horror.
Ethan, get on watching more movies.
I want to talk about Jigoku. I want to talk about the originator, Jigoku.
Oh.
I need to see that actually.
Honestly, it's very good. It's very good. It's very expressionist in my opinion. But I am a layperson as far as like film and film theory and film critique. But I
like
think Jigoku
I like
is
that.
amazing.
I like that. Sounds good.
Brady, you got the W&W boys.
Okay, guys. Our friends Michael Hill and Jason Holder host a podcast called Whiskey and Wrestling, where they drink some whiskey or some other liquor. Not liqueurs. I don't think they've done any of those. It's mostly just regular old spirits.
The Rock, they've done the Rock's tequila.
Yeah,
The Rock should have done vodka.
I
because Rock
unfortunately-
vodka just sounds easier to say.
I unfortunately tasted that, and I'm not a spirit person, so it was really bad. But even them who like to drink all that stuff,
Well, it's
was
half
like,
of their title. So
was like, oh man, this is terrible.
I heard your soul leave your body.
Yeah, it was really bad. I'm like I said, I'm not a big. I'm more of like a beer person than a spirits person, but it was not fun. But they drink and they tell you a little bit about the stuff that they're drinking, and then they talk about wrestling and the shit show that that has been going on lately.
We get to hear Zeke speak.
Yeah, sure. Look at how they massacred my boy.
No, Ezekiel and Elias are two totally. You saw the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw
they're
the
clearly-
Solid evidence.
What about that stunning debut of Hook on Dynamite?
Yeah.
where he fought Jobber 236.
And then
Yeah.
Danhausen came out. You fight me.
That was the best.
Curse you. Yeah, that was the best moment
the
from
best,
this week's
was.
that was the
Dynamite.
best part. It was worth getting the squash match to get to that.
Quick hot take: coffin match with Andrade and Darby. The best part about a coffin match between Darby Allin and Andrade, I'll use his original Andrade Cien Almas, was Sting going New Jack again.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is a problem.
Yep.
Yeah. So you hear them talk about things in wrestling that happened just like we just did, only with less cursing. Check them out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor.
Where all good podcasts can be
are from.
found.
I think they're even on Stitcher.
Our eternal thanks to Greg Spanier and
Thank
the
you,
crew
Greg.
here
Thanks,
Thank you,
Greg.
at McNarb Gaming in Goshen, Mississippi, for providing us with this fantastic studio space where we can come to you, the passengers, every week So far, every week.
Yeah.
Shop,
we've been doing
buy, play at
Shop,
McNarb
Shop,
Gaming.
buy, play, McNarb Gaming.
Yeah.
Jody, give them a quick game recommendation.
Takedo.
Takedo.
Ethan's gonna buy the new Azul,
Azul?
Queen's Garden.
Yeah.
so we
Yeah,
can all
yeah.
play it.
Bianca-
Yes,
Get on that.
I've been told I'm buying.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Bianca loves it so
Yeah,
much.
Bianca loves it.
Bianca loves it. Hey, Bianca.
Hi, Bianca.
Hey, I'll top it for 1 second before we go off the air. Brady, do you have a copy of Baby Driver on Blu-ray or DVD?
Why? Yes, I do.
Well, that's good because you can't stream it anywhere unless you rent it.
Passengers, thank you very much for stopping by, Travelers on the Omnibus. Tune in next time when we talk about the joys and heartaches of streaming. For myself, James McCarthy.
I'm Jody Kite.
Brady Davis.
Ethan Skinner.
We all got our last names back.
Yay! We're no longer the WWE. And with that notice, bye-bye, Yodis. I tried to rhyme it. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Bye.
We're not good at that.
Yeah.
See you later.